What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the playthrough, as I am currently playing through the entire Resident Evil franchise, and today we're going to talk about Resident Evil Revelations, the first one, so Revelations 1. This was a game that I had no idea what it was about going into. I had heard nothing about it. I did know that it was originally a 3DS title, so I kept my expectations fairly low, but I was pleasantly surprised with the game. So before I get into anything, if you like watching me play through entire video game franchises, if you have a suggestion of which franchise I should play through next, please let me know in the comments, but also head on over to my channel, Trezinator, click on the subscribe button. It would mean a great deal to me, and if you like this video, it would also mean a great deal to me if you give that video a big thumbs up. So without further ado, let's take a look at the production of Resident Evil Revelations. Resident Evil Revelations was released on January 26, 2012 for the 3DS. Now, I played this on the Nintendo Switch. It was directed by Koshi Nakanishi and written by Dei Soto. Like I said, the game is pretty impressive for a 3DS game. I didn't know that the 3DS was capable of running games like these. This game actually came out about half a year before Resident Evil 6, and I feel like Resident Evil 6 kind of took some things from this game. Now let's get into the plot as according to Wikipedia. Revelations is set between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 5, shortly after the establishment of the counterterrorism group Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, also known as the BSAA. 1 year prior to the game's events, the Federal Bioterrorism Commission, FBC, sent agents Parker Luciani and Jessica Sherowat to keep the city of Terra Grigia under control after bioterrorist organization Veltro launched an attack using genetically modified living creatures in opposition to Terra Grigia's solar energy development. In the present, BSAA head Clive R. O'Brien sends out BSAA agents Jill Valentine and Parker to search for BSAA agents Chris Redfield and Jessica at their last known location, the cruise ship, the Queen Zenobia, in the Mediterranean Sea. They have reportedly gone missing during their mission to investigate Veltro's possible reappearance. Aboard the ship, Jill and Parker enter a room where they believe Chris is being held, realizing too late that it was a trap set by a Veltro operative. Meanwhile, Chris and Jessica find a base of operations for Veltro, the Valkoinen Moki airstrip in the mountains. Being informed by O'Brien that Jill and Parker are missing in the Mediterranean, they are redeployed to investigate their whereabouts. O'Brien also sends BSAA agents Quint Sechem and Keith Lumley to the airstrip to gather information. Awakening in separate locked rooms, Jill and Parker manage to regroup and witness a video transmission of a Veltro member threatening to infect 1/5 of Earth's oceans with the T-Abyss, which was created in retaliation to the FBC for their involvement in the destruction of Veltro's forces on Terra Grigia. Jill and Parker reach the ship's antenna to request evacuation, but learn that FBC Director Morgan Lansdale activated a satellite attack on the Queen Zenobia, which floods the ship with water. Chris and Jessica arrive at the Queen Zenobia and eventually meet with Jill and Parker. The team is confronted by the Veltro operative, but Jessica shoots him before he reveals details of a larger conspiracy. Parker unmasks him to discover that he was FBC partner Raymond Vester. He seemingly dies after whispering something to him. Afterward, Chris and Jill make their way to the ship's laboratory to stop the virus from contaminating the sea, while Parker and Jessica search for a way to stop the ship from sinking. As told by Vester, Parker turns his gun on Jessica, suspecting her of being an FBC mole. Jessica wounds Parker and initiates a self-destruct sequence before escaping. Vester reveals himself to be alive and working with O'Brien. Having found the laboratory, Chris and Jill are confronted by Lansdale via a video uplink, revealing that he worked with Veltro in the Terra Grigia panic in an effort to increase the FBC's funding and international influence. The pair neutralizes the virus and proceeds to an extraction point. O'Brien informs Chris and Jill that he had orchestrated the events in an effort to gather evidence of Lansdale's involvement in Terra Grigia. He also informs them of the results from Keith and Quint's data analysis, the existence of a sister ship below the ruins of Terra Grigia, which was destroyed by Lansdale to eliminate incriminating evidence of his involvement. However, Lansdale then proceeds to arrest O'Brien, cutting off all communications. In the sister ship, Jill and Chris search for Veltro leader Jack Norman, knowing that he holds evidence against Lansdale. However, he has gone delusional and survived a year by injecting himself with T-Abyss. After a long battle, Chris and Jill defeat him and broadcast the video exposing Lansdale. As a result, O'Brien is released and the FBC is dissolved. In the end, it is revealed that Parker was ultimately saved by Vester. In a post-credits scene, Vester approaches Jessica at a cafe and gives her a sample of the T-Abyss. She asks him why he saved Parker, with him replying that he had his reasons. So there it is, the story for Resident Evil Revelations. Overall, I thought this story was very well done. It brought the OG team back together. You have Chris, you have Jill, you have the two new characters, actually a bunch of new characters, but Jessica and Parker, who are the fan favorites. I was a very big fan of Parker. I thought he was a great addition to the team. And I think this game actually expanded Resident Evil's lore more so than almost any other game has in the past. At times, the storyline does kind of feel like this kind of soap opera type storyline, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The game also kind of feels almost like a Telltale game with a little bit more action. I mean, it's not as much point and click, but you have, I guess when they released the game, they released it as episodes. So you had like last time on Revelations when you beat each chapter, which I thought was kind of cool. It was interesting. It was new. And the story is much bigger than I had expected. So while the story is good and it's interesting and it hooked me while I was playing the game, it is a little like there's twists all along the way. Like, here's a twist, there's a twist, everywhere is a twist. They just have twists throughout the entire game, which near the end of the game, it kind of gets boring because it's like, oh, well, you kind of stop being surprised that things are going to happen, and it's like, well, all bets are off now. Really, anything can happen in this story. And for the record, I called in my head the Raymond Jessica team up when that happened. Also, at the end of the game, some things don't really make sense, but again, it's Resident Evil and nothing makes sense in Resident Evil. But Nathan's just sitting down in the bottom of the ship, just hanging on for like a year, injecting himself with the T-Abyss virus. Just like, I mean, I don't know. Does he need to eat? I don't know. It was a little weird. I do like the whole backstory of Terra Grigia, though. It does kind of get explored a little bit more in Revelations 2 when we get there, and I'm sure they'll explore it if they continue the Revelations series. But overall, it just makes the lore of Resident Evil a lot larger, and I did like that about this game. So gameplay and design. First off, the game looks great. For what you would expect a game to look on 3DS, I did not expect it to look as good as it did. So kudos to the team that developed this game for 3DS. I mean, I played it on the Switch, but it looks very good, and I expected it to look a lot worse than it did. But overall, where it exceeds in the look of the game, it kind of lacks in gameplay. The game is very basic. I do like the weapon system and the weapon upgrading system where you get different parts to like kind of customize your own weapons. But there are some story missions, there are some chapters where really there's only one enemy in the chapter. The animations are kind of reused, the AI isn't very good, and most of the flashback missions are just not great. You have like mainly one enemy type that you're fighting. It's just a couple shots and you kill them. As I said, the AI just isn't very good. You get this scanning weapon where you kind of scan things, and then if you scan enough things, you can gain some health and some herbs. I do feel like Resident Evil 6 pulled kind of their herb and medicine and healing a little bit from this game too. It's just kind of goes against the classic Resident Evil, but they're trying something new, so it's okay. And I appreciate what they tried to do with some like underwater missions, some on-rails missions to kind of mix things up a bit. But overall, it just kind of felt like it was a super basic game, and it just kind of lacked in these departments. I didn't hate it, but when you put it up against all the other Resident Evil games, it kind of stands out. Aside from that, some of the missions felt kind of shoehorned in there, like they just needed to throw something in there when they didn't really need to. Again, going back to the flashbacks, I feel like a lot of those missions weren't needed, but I guess they felt like they were short for content to get one of the chapters out, and they just kind of shoehorn these missions in there. And sometimes the bosses are really, really tough. I remember when I was fighting the captain, it took me like a few tries to bring him down because they just kind of overloaded me with a bunch of enemies, and I didn't have enough ammo to really just kill him. It took me a few tries. I had to mix up my strategy. So I feel like there's kind of an imbalance in gameplay here and there throughout the game. There wasn't really a lot of puzzles in the game from what I remember. I think that a lot of the puzzles were just kind of like find this key, kind of super basic. They didn't really stand out. So how does this game stack up against all of the other Resident Evil games? Well, I'm looking at all the other Resident Evil games, and right now, even though this is, I guess, the 7th game that I'm reviewing, all of the games that we've had prior, I don't think any of them were really bad games. Even Resident Evil 0 that's at the bottom. So if I'm starting from the bottom and putting it up against Resident Evil 0, I actually think I'm gonna have to put this at the bottom, because I do think Resident Evil 0 is a tighter game. I think that even though this is like not the fixed camera, it's over the shoulder, it's a little bit more action oriented. It's just, the gameplay is kind of too basic. It's definitely not a bad game. I did enjoy it, and I enjoyed the story. I think the story is much better than Resident Evil 0, but I think that overall Resident Evil 0 is just a better game. So Resident Evil Revelations is going to have to go at the bottom. So my new rankings of the Resident Evil franchise is number 1, Resident Evil 4, number 2, Resident Evil 2 Remake, number 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica, number 4, Resident Evil 3 Remake, number 5, Resident Evil HD Remaster, number 6, Resident Evil 0, and number 7, Resident Evil Revelations. Next up, I will be reviewing Resident Evil 5. So Chris and Sheva go to Africa. It's a whole new story. It's kind of like Resident Evil 4, but it's different. I haven't played it in a long time, really, since it came out. So what are my thoughts going to be on that? So please check back to hear my thoughts on that. And again, if you like watching me play through entire video game franchises, if you like watching me rank these Resident Evil videos, it would mean a great deal to me if you could give this video a big thumbs up, and if you could head on over to my channel, Tresinator, and click that subscribe button so you can watch all of my videos upon their release. So if you've played Resident Evil Revelations or any of the other Resident Evil games, let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. And until next time, I hope to see you on my next video.